I'm sure you were expecting to hear the voice of a beautiful elf or a wise wizard, so they could spin you a tale of gold and ancient evils. But that is not this story. No, this is a story of four friends that call Middle-earth home. A dwarf of the line of Durin's kin, who is obsessed with knowledge instead of gold. An elf of Rivendell, sworn to serve and protect the descendants of a once great house. A banished dwarf, seeking glory and proof that there is more to life than what lies under a mountain. And a hobbit of the Shire, who collects treasures of the smallest kind. Together, with their strength, wits, and heart, they will face the growing shadows of the East, bringing light where there is darkness.
Arise, minions, and welcome to unMadeGaming. We are here, we are back for another episode of The Shattered Crown. This one's a little bit special, a little bit different. This is a one-shot, a one-on-one character one-shot, with someone whom you may recognize as the player, but not as the character. So, that being said, if you guys like what we do here and you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is over on our Patreon, link in the description down below. While you're clicking on that link, join us over in the Discord. Link's also down there. Be a part of the community, be a part of the conversation. And as always, in the bottom right-hand corner is the corruption bar. That bar serves two purposes. One is when that bar fills, I do terrible things to my cast and crew. And two, every single dollar that goes into that bar goes back to the cast of the show entirely. So, that being said, I will turn things over to our lovely, lovely gnome. Gnome, could you describe this gentleman? This Solheim?
Yes. Solheim stands approximately 6'5", 340 pounds of absolute man. He is thick. He's got a bit of a tummy. He's got a well-kept beard, long hair that is pulled back in a couple of braids, like a dirt blonde in color with some gray coming in, white peppering through the beard as it darkens with age. He's probably in his upper 30s, closer to 40 years old. And he is wearing a lot of like blue blue leather, blue cloth, with silver accents, and underneath his clothing you can hear the clanging of mail, as there is a nice coat of mail underneath. Brown pants, heavy boots, a large furred cloak on his back. He carries a sword by his side and a bow strapped to his back. There are a couple of thick gold and silver jeweled rings on his thick, chunky fingers. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it right now.
Okay, I like that. So we see this thick boy, this thick man of his age. He is on a ship. He's on a ship. The ship is not at sea, but not at land either. The ship is forging a delta. It is entering into brackish waters from the southern seas of Eriador, headed upward towards the Grey Floods. Or it would be if it weren't for the cacophony of sounds. The quartermaster and his bosun's mate are pulling at barrels. They are strapping things down. We see Solheim is doing whatever his task is. The helmsman is calling out commands while clanging on a bell. All hands topside, all hands to decks. There is something happening. The sea around you, Solheim, is boiling. There is splashing. You see it almost looks as though it is coral. You know it's not. You know that it is the ancient alabaster city of Londair from thousands of years ago, built by the first men here in Middle-earth, here in Arda. But what you see moving around this dark, brackish, briny kind of water, you see coils of something large. At first, it might have seemed like tree trunks adrift, having been chopped down and sent downriver. You know they should have never made it this far, but you see it moving in waves and arcs as the water splashes up and the boat lurches. There is no storm at sea. It appears as though the storm is coming from underneath. What are you doing in this moment as something is tossing your ship?
Well, I think the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and grab hold of a harpoon.
I forgot we were doing a voice thing, and that completely threw me off.
Yeah, oh, hello, yes. So I will go ahead and helm the harpoon, and swing it around, and go ahead and fire, at this creature.
Absolutely. You know what? Let's roll some dice. Let's see what
rolling dice right away.
Let's see what Solheim is capable of. I'm gonna let you roll. I'm gonna let you roll bow for this situation, but I'm gonna give you a bonus of +2 die because you are using a ship-mounted spear of some kind.
All right. Bow with the +1.
2 +2.
+2. My apologies. +2. Target's parry.
Target's parry is 4.
We
Outstanding.
will start off with a failure.
Perfect. So you fire this into the ocean by whatever spring-loaded mechanism is on this thing. I assume you don't have a rope attached to this, but a harpoon spirals out of this and pierces through the waves of the water. You see these arcs and waves of whatever these logs are start to bend and move and sort of circular around your ship. There are screams from the rigging. You see people are battening the hatches. You see a handful of people that you know, the people you've crewed with, are heading up topside from here. More people are strapping things down. More people are grabbing onto the other shipboard ballistas, while the helmsman does his very best to twist the helm in the opposite direction the boat seems to be spinning. You were headed north up the Grey Flood. You are now pointed in a relatively easterly direction that you know will either hit land or send you adrift out to sea. Roll me an awareness.
Failure.
Absolutely awesome. You hear a loud crash and a telltale Lord of the Ringsian Wilhelm scream of "Wah!" As one or more people are torn from your boat. This sound comes from behind you. You hear the crack of some sort of board, and you hear the rolling of barrels followed by a scream, and you know that one member of your crew is no longer on board. Do you continue to man the ballista, or do you do something else?
No, that was a one-shot attempt. Solheim will go ahead and try to assist. Let's see who would be near. Maybe shifting the sails.
Okay.
Probably grabbing hold of rope and assisting with his might, trying to get
Yeah,
you
hell
know,
yeah.
a
So you're
better
trying to
position
get
with
the
rope.
boat under control.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead and roll me. Ooh, roll me. It's gonna be something strength based, I would assume. Um,
Athletics.
I guess athletics does seem to be the most appropriate here.
Nope, failure.
Absolutely. So you leave the ballista, you run over to the main mast, and you begin to pull. Or you run over to the starboard side rather, and you begin to pull the rigging line. You begin to swing the jib, as it were, pulling this line in hand over hand, using your beefy muscles and your own weight to sort of pull these in. And as you do, the ship lurches to the left. Tipping people over, more barrels sort of slosh and break. If the ship didn't already smell of fish, it does so now, as one of the barrels full of salted fish sort of explodes open and flops across the deck. The ship itself is in danger of tipping over, and that is when you see your assailant. As you hold on, kind of wrapping an arm into the rigging or wrapping an arm into the ropes here, you see rising out of the sea like a tree is a serpent, easily larger than a nobleman's waistline, rising up over the side of the boat and sort of arcing its neck and peering down at you. And you see its yellow-green eyes almost glow. Perhaps it is just your imagination. Perhaps it's the thrill of the situation. You've never seen a creature like this. And it opens its mouth wide enough to consume you whole. And you see, as the spittle sort of like leaks off its teeth, it begins to like gargle. And you see, almost like water falling out of its mouth, you begin to see smoke. Green, acrid smoke just slowly begins to pour out like mist and sort of leads down its jaw and hits the boat and begins to slowly cascade as this boat is tipping down. I need you to make me a protection roll. So go ahead and make me a protection roll. This one is going to be a 14. A difficulty 14. I think that's how this works for protection rolls.
It says injury rating?
Oh, injury rating is 14.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Extraordinary success.
Outstanding. So describe to me how you go about avoiding the poison this thing is spilling out of its mouth.
Well, I think any good seaman will be able to
Christ.
shift quite rapidly. They're rather agile on their feet in unsteady situations, as the sea is unforgiving in its dance. And though large for his size, Solheim just kind of tucks and rolls off to the side onto one shoulder, skidding across the wet floor, kicking some salted fish to the side, and barely scrambles back up to his feet. His boots kind of slick skid against the flooring as he pushes himself back up and braces himself.
Okay. What are you doing as you do so?
I am going to look to a crewman who is not using their bow, and I'm going to pull it from them as they're like running across, grab a couple arrows, and start firing.
Go for it.
At this creature. I will go ahead and do forward stance.
Yeah.
Target's parry.
Target's parry is 4.
4. That's right. Ooh, failure.
Okay.
That's 20 is hard to hit.
It is a rough time. It is a challenging creature you are fighting here. You steady yourself on this rocking, tossing, spinning boat, the ship, as you try to gain footing, fire an arrow into this thing. You see its coils. This thing must be impossibly long. It's long enough to encircle the boat itself. You see its tail rise up on the other side of the boat as you are sort of tipping. It's still kind of held on with one arm on the rope. And you see it coil around somebody else and rip them into the sea. And you hear another Wilhelm scream followed by a splash and a few gurgles.
Mhm.
That is its turn. What are you doing?
I will go. I'm going to go ahead and try to fire another shot. If I can't get this one, then I'll figure something else out.
Go for it.
Right now, while I've got the arrows in hand, I will go ahead and attempt to just hit it. Ooh, not even close.
Another arrow, another miss. Phew, this thing flies off somewhere into the night sky. As you track the arrow, you notice the sky overhead looks almost like a storm, although you know it shouldn't be at this time. You try to concentrate and reposition yourself and figure out what step is next, and you hear the creaking, snapping sound of boards. Something about this creature seems to be tightening, constricting around your ship. You see its head sort of dart back and forth, and it, with lightning reflexes, it snatches forward, and you knew there was somebody above you on the rigging, and if you didn't, you were quickly made aware by the shower of blood that rains down as a boot falls down, and the rest of this thing is pulled underwater for a brief few seconds before its head resurfaces. It is your turn. What would you like to do?
I think at this point, the best option is going to be get off the boat. And although waiting for the captain's order, means Solheim looks around for the captain, for any sense of what to do in this moment. Does the captain seem to have control?
The captain has as much control as he possibly can in what is seemingly unorganized chaos. The captain stands beside the helmsman. He is yelling things out, but over the sound of screams, the sound of the water gurgling beneath you, it is difficult to even make out what he is saying. But you can see that he's pointing at the creature, and whether he is issuing a command to leave or issuing a command to attack, you're not entirely sure which one. But you do see him trying to gain some level of control over the scenario.
Okay. Assuming that we're attempting to fight the creature before we lose this ship, I will go ahead and run back to the harpoon, grab one, hoist it in, crank it, aim, position, and fire once more.
Okay, you can do all of that. Roll me with a +2.
That would be a great piercing blow.
Hell yeah, that is a thing. So let me see here. Let me roll against this. That is a 14. Actually, we'll say with the harpoon, let's call it an 18. It's a pretty sizable weapon here. Let's see what happens. No bonus die for me. Oh, just barely. So
close.
So damage is dealt. I take 3 points of damage here. You crank this thing back and you aim perfectly and you fire this thing into what you feel is going to be like its lower jaw. You time it right, and it moves at just the right time. It slams into this thing's underbelly, piercing it a good 12 inches. This harpoon sinks in. You see it rear its head back and let out this like roar / hiss sound, and you see its head sort of drop down underwater. Bubbles rise to the surface, and for a moment the ship begins to right itself. You have a moment's reprieve. What are you doing?
I'm gonna go ahead and shout, man the harpoons, creature hits.
Okay. You see the captain look towards you. You see him like grab a strap and he sort of wraps it around the helm and the helmsman, sort of keeping them in place. And he runs over to the rear ballista, the aft ballista. And you see other men come down from whatever rigging was left, and they move onto whatever other posts there were, waiting for the inevitable. The inevitable does come. You see on both sides of you, I'll give you an attack here, the head surges back up, your arrow's still in it. On the other side of the ship, the tail surges up, and you see they are almost going to meet in the middle. You're free to take your shot.
Yeah, we're going to attempt to fire at that bad boy. Bow. Failure.
Okay, you fire into this thing. You fire into this thing as it coils around the ship. You see its head dive over from port to starboard, tail in reverse, and it dunks back under, and you see its head come up and tail come up a second time, now on opposite sides of the ship. What are you doing? Are you going to attack again as you see this thing coiling around the ship?
Oh, I'm gonna look at the captain once more, looking for orders.
Yeah, let's see what happens here. I'm going to give you a roll here. I'm going to, let's see, a D12 plus, let's see, he would be using enhearten. Let's call it 1D12. That's his, primary roll here. That is a Gandalf rune.
Wow.
So he is very convincing. And let's say 2d6s for his ability to command. And let's see what he gets. For a total of 19 points, beating a 15 heart rating for this captain. So you look to him, he's not really making eye contact with you. You see him like reach back, like you see him lean forward way further than he should need to, given that he's not even facing the creature, and he leans back incredibly hard, and you hear the creaking and snapping sound as he rips the ballista off of the rear of the ship, and he points it out and slams back the trigger mechanism, and he says, "Take it down for the queen!" And he fires this ballista into this thing as it spirals in. And let's see what happens here. Let's roll this plus. Nope, not that one. Plus this. He rolled a 6. So 6 versus a target of 16. He fires this thing in, and it misses horribly, but it looked real cool right as it's about to happen. So very awe-inspiring, very enheartening, as you see the captain rip the ballista off and shout for the queen. What do you do?
Yeah, if we're shouting for our leaders of home, Solheim will go ahead and load yet another harpoon, and spin it, because so the creature is already coiled once and
Correct.
is making its way again
A second time.
then
Yes.
never mind. If it's already there, Solheim will go ahead and grab a sword. Maybe there's one, on the ground. He won't quite grab his, and charge at the creature and just start stabbing.
Absolutely. Go ahead and roll to stab this guy and fuck him up. Parry is still 4.
Forward stance. Parry 4. Oh, failure. Oh, that was bad.
That was rough. That was a rough one. You charge this creature, and it is like hitting. It's like hitting like hide mail. You run up this thing and you slam this thing with your sword. It doesn't quite like bounce off of it, but this is like incredibly chitinous tanned leather. You've never hit something this solid other than an armored man. And you kind of like deflect off of this thing as it loops around a second time. You see its head go under, its tail go under as it wraps 2 coils around the boat. There is not a lot of space for people to maneuver around between these. You see one of the guys sort of grab onto it and sort of slide under one of the coils as it tries to like grab a hand harpoon and just sort of stab into it in the same way you are. All around you, you begin to hear the cracking and creaking and breaking of this boat. And for a second, when you look to the captain, you see panic and fear flash across his eyes as he looks to the helmsman, who is assuredly dead, having been strapped to this thing. He's not making it out alive. People are falling off the boat. You see that the waters are a murky red hue. The captain, you see him slide another bolt into the harpoon, and he just fires it again. You think he may be determined to go down with his ship. What do you do?
And we will go down with the ship. I will go ahead and take another swing.
Okay, go for it.
Ha! Piercing blow.
Hell yeah. That is a piercing blow. Fuck yeah.
Thanks,
Injury
Gandalf.
rating is 16. Let's see what happens here. Injury rating is 16 with the sword. No bonus die for me. I succeed on my ability to not get fucked up too bad. But I do take another 4 points of damage. You hit like the same spot. You look for the spot where there's a chunk of scale missing, and you slam into that same spot. Your sword buries not nearly as deep as that blow would have let you believe, but your blade buries into this thing a good 2-3 inches, and you kind of have to like plant a foot to pull it back out. You kind of hear that same roar, but it is gurgly and from underwater. As you see, it's like blackish green blood just sort of soak down the side of it, soaking the side of your blade. More crunching noises. You see that the small mast that is on this tiny sailing vessel begins to creak, and you see splinters start to break as the mast is toppling over. You see one of the men, another Wilhelm, scream as you see him underneath the coils, his leg caught in one of the bindings of the rope, being dragged down by the mast. The ship is splintering underneath you. What are you doing?
Captain, the ship is not going to hold. Our blades are barely piercing.
He looks to you. He pulls his cutlass out and he slams it into the helm, both locking the helm in place and cutting free the helmsman. And he looks to you and just sort of shouts to everyone, "Every man for himself!" as he loads another bolt into the harpoon, possibly going down, possibly buying you time, as he fires another round into this creature.
Still inspired with a chunk right in front of me. I will go ahead and make another swing.
Go for it.
Failure.
You swing at this. Your blade bounces off a different spot. The ship lurches under your feet as you go to hack into this creature. And the last thing you remember is upending and hitting the cold, brackish water. Flotsam, jetsam floating around you. You see limbs of allies, friends, compatriots, rope just sort of coiling down into the sea before the darkness of the Grey Floods takes you. And we cut to an indeterminate amount of time later. Solheim, you wake coughing and sputtering, still feeling compressed as if you are underwater. And when your eyes flutter open, you do not see the murky brackish water surrounding you. Instead, you see white sunlight coming in through a gossamer sort of shimmering curtain, and the compression you felt on your chest was a nicely tucked bed. It takes a moment to get used to, but you seem to be inside of a large wooden structure, a dirt yet carpeted floor where you are. There's the smell of a warm fire, and you see the shadowy figure of someone armored, maybe your size, maybe a little bit smaller than you. You're not entirely sure because they appear to be wearing some sort of armor, standing in your doorway. Not facing you, facing away.
Going to try to keep my breathing under control and maybe slowly, open one eye, take a little look around, make sure I'm not in an enemy hand or.
As far as you can tell, you're not bound. The only thing keeping you in bed is being tucked in. There's nothing on your hands and feet. You see that you're, as you kind of like get your bearings and adjust your vision to what you're expecting to see, there is a like a large chest near you, atop of which is folded your clothing, beside which is your boots. There is a small table beside you that has a pitcher and glass of water. It also contains your blade, your bow, and a for lack of better words, at this point, it looks like a small dagger. But upon further inspection, this is not a dagger that you yourself recall owning. It is instead about a 9-inch piece of what looks like ivory.
All right, I will clear my throat and sit up. Captain.
You sit up, you kind of pull yourself up into a sitting position and call out for someone. The person who turns around, who you expected to see, is not your captain. In fact, who you see is a well armored. Let me rephrase that. An armored person. The armor they're wearing is not well crafted, but they are wearing a considerable amount of it. They are wearing leathers and furs. There are small additions of metal, like a pauldron, a set of greaves. Nothing is matching. It all seems to be a little haphazard. But the woman who turns around has shock red hair in curls, sort of tied back into this messy sort of bun. And you see that she has one hand rested on probably the nicest piece of equipment she owns, which seems to be a relatively newly crafted blade. She turns to you, realizing that you are up and ambulatory, and she strides towards you. And as she comes into focus with the sunlight sort of cascading in, you see that she has she looks like she is far too young to be this armored and standing guard. She's maybe in her late teens, early 20s. In your eyes, absolutely a child. She strides over to you, rosy cheeks and a smile on her face, and she says, "Oh, finally, you've woken. Amazing. I'm sorry. You've been in and out of consciousness for weeks now, and I've been tasked with watching over you. Are you okay? How are you feeling?"
I feel fine. What of my ship, my crew? You said for weeks?
Yes. I regret to inform you that you are the only surviving member of whatever crew you were a part of. Roll me insight if you'd like. If you think that's something Solheim would do.
Failure.
Okay. Yeah, that is a shocking turn of events. You don't read anything more into that at all.
I take a moment to reflect on what that means. The sense of time being missed and trying to recall the last moments that I could. The the wetness, the acrid smoke, the serpent, the heroic activity of my captain. And I'll look back up or down. I don't know. I'm a big dude. Big dude on a
You're
little
sat
bed.
in bed, so she is higher than you at that point.
Okay. I'll look to her and ask, and what of the serpent?
She looks to you and she sort of leans over towards where you know your sword and bow to be. And she reaches over for this ivory dagger and sort of picks this thing up and presents it to you. She says, "You were found clutching this. We have seen attacks such as yours before. Other knights have sent out from here to assail the creature. None have returned. In fact, you seem to be the first to have survived." And you realize that what she has handed you is not some sort of ivory dagger. It is in fact a 9-inch fang pulled from the mouth of this creature. How it ended up in your possession, you have no idea.
Where are we?
Oh, I apologize. I assumed you. This is Londair. You're in the Queen's care.
Please, when you have a moment, send my thank you to the Queen.
If you are well enough, the Queen has requested that once you are able to tell your story, that it will be told to her.
Of course. Of course. And my apologies. My head still spins. What is your name?
Oh, no need to apologize. That's my own rudeness. My name is Dame Eshel. I am one of the Queen's knights.
Dame, thank you for your kindness and your hospitality. I sorry you needed to be the bearer of bad news.
Now, Gnome, you would know. Solheim would know. Since you've been in this part of the world for quite some time, this would have happened before you got here, but you would have heard tell about it, especially having traveled through Londair. About 10 years ago, there was a serpent that was doing pretty much the same shit it's doing now. That serpent was slain by a girl who was collecting shells by the ocean. Her story, what you've heard, is she was held captive. She found an ancient weapon and killed it in its den. She was then promptly made queen of Londair, despite the ruling council of wealthy old men not being a huge fan of that. And she has since ruled over Londair for the last 10 years. Recently, within the last year, 6 months to a year, there have been sightings of another such creature. There have been rumors that it's the same one, that she didn't actually kill it, that it's a new one, that it's its brood, that it's its mate, come back for revenge. Any number of these things. The concept of this creature has not been unknown to you, but the risk of starving is worth the risk of, maybe running into a giant snake monster. So you kind of have an idea where you are in Londare. You must be in what makes for her keep, which is really just imagine an exaggerated Viking longhouse. It's kind of like that. It's like a bigger longhouse. Dame looks to you and she says, there is sorry, I did half expect you not to wake at all. There is I will have someone bring in a wash bowl. Your clothes are here. They have been scrubbed clean of any blood and mud. All of your belongings have been left to you, and I will wait outside for to bring you in front of the queen, if you're prepared.
Yes, of course. Thank you again for your kindness.
She brings a hand to her chest and sort of bows down towards you, turns on her heel, and walks out. A minute or two later, a young page boy kind of comes in with a large bowl of water. You can see that it's hot, and he places it down on a small table, nods to you, and sort of backs out of the room.
Yeah, I will go ahead and bathe, freshen up, clean my hair, redo my braids, try to comb and tame my beard a little bit, don my armor, my clothes, try to wear them as proudly as I possibly can. Still kind of carrying I think in my free hand, just gripping rather tightly the fang or one of the teeth that was handed to me.
Okay. You make your way out of the room, and as soon as you put a hand on the handle of the door, there is additional force applied as the door is held open for you. You see Dame Eshel is outside of the room waiting for you. You see before you a large corridor. Sort of opening up into a secondary room here. You seem to have like a sort of private quarter. There's a more spacious common room kind of thing. Another hallway leads off of that towards the proper interior of the Queen's Hall. Dame wordlessly brings you out there, unless you try to start a conversation with her. And as you make your way down the hallway towards the main council room, towards the inner hall, you can't help but notice that there is a large statue. You see inside this room, there are long tables, seemingly for feasts or large gatherings. You see that there's a large fire burning in the middle of the hall, like this huge bonfire in the middle of the hall. You see four large columns on either side, two on either side of this fire, sort of holding up this canopy of a roof. And you see that the floor is a strange mosaic. You're not entirely sure what it is from your vantage point, or maybe it's the light, whatever it is. But there are tiles and some sort of crushed, almost like fine stone that makes up some sort of swirling pattern here. You see to your left a raised dais, on top of which sits two small braziers and a large chair. Above that, and possibly the most concerning thing, is almost a perfect match for what you hold in your hand, in that there is the head of a massive serpent. The skull sat above this chair, stanchioned to the wall, hanging over the inner hall here. You see the queen is sat in her chair as the dame ushers you into the room. Do you say anything before approaching the queen?
I don't think words are necessary when in front of such royalty, but I will take a knee and bow, lower my head.
You bow, and you hear a much softer voice than you would have probably expected, having been the slayer of a giant serpent, as she says, "Rise, sailor." And you see Queen Nimue, who is also fairly young. She is maybe 10 years your junior, if not slightly more. Your best guess is maybe early 30s, late 20s. She was a girl when she slayed this beast, and she's only been on the throne for about 10 years. She stands there and she she sits there rather, and looks down at you and she says, "Rise, please, sailor. I have been informed that your ship and crew have fallen to the beast of the Grey Flood. I had hoped for your survival, I'd hoped for you to wake up, and I would like to hear your telling of what had happened. You are, to my knowledge and to the knowledge of my knights, the first survivor to have had a run-in with the beast of the Grey Flood."
Of course, Queen. We were on our way up north, or up the river, to reach market with our goods. And the wind blew cold, the waters shook and darkened, sky went gray, and there was something in the water. We did what we could to fight it off. The captain held fast. His bravery will not go unknown. And we fired upon the creature. It wrapped itself around our ship, got in a couple blows with my sword, the captain a few with a harpoon. But I wish I could tell you more. That is all I remember.
I was told that you carry a trophy from the beast. How did you come by such an artifact?
I cannot recall. And I will go ahead and hold it up and present it to the queen.
She actually stands up out of this throne, and takes a few steps down. Her red dress is sort of trailing behind her. You see the furs sort of cover her shoulders, and her hair is done up in like this circlet. She walks down the 3 or 4 stairs, dress sort of cascading behind her, and she looks to you. First at your hand held out and then up to your face as you are taller than her. She says, "You have no recollection of pulling this from its mouth."
I wish I could have an answer for you. Your dame presented it to me as I awoke.
"Yes, we found you on the riverbank. A good less than a league away from Londair. You were covered in mud and blood, and you had been, I assume, it was due to your run-in with the creature, but also from your shipwreck, perhaps. You were clutching this in your hand. I assumed you had wrestled it from its mouth."
I cannot recall. I would not make such a claim without being confident in my deed.
It appears it has grown more brazen. It doesn't usually attack ships. And she seems to be not quite talking to you, but talking, and you happen to be in the way of her words. I apologize. My advisor wishes to speak with you. He would like to hear your tale as well, and perhaps he can make something more of it than I can. If you don't mind, I understand you have just woken up. I wouldn't task you. But if you are comfortable regaling your tale one more time.
As long as it honors the men and women I served with, then yes, of course. I will tell the tale.
She calls over you, sort of echoing down the chamber past the crackling, roaring fire in the center. And she calls out, Haldane, bring him in. And you see, you hear the door creak, this double door creak open. And there's something about the man's footsteps that enters, that is enough to cause you to break eye contact with the queen and sort of turn around. You've been a sailing man for quite some time, and you're a fairly large man. Not the biggest, but absolutely not the smallest, and one you have counted yourself among as able to hold his own in a fight. This man could toss you around the room. In your travels from the Dale lands over the Misty Mountains and towards the Bree lands and the lands of Eriador, you've heard tales of a small settlement of people called the Bjornings. And if this man isn't one of those, you would eat your own hat. This man is easily 6'10", 6'11". He is huge. He towers above the highest point of the fire. In fact, he has to duck beneath the door to properly enter into it. And he takes up a sizable portion of its frame, even though it's a double door. And you see trailing behind him is a much smaller man. Maybe 6'2", frail, older, long white beard, robes sort of down, hiding his feet, and you can hear the thunk, thunk of a gnarled wooden staff. The first man enters in and stands beside you, kneels, and even at kneeling, the top of his head is still near your shoulder. This man is a beast, and he says, "The court magister, my queen." She, of course, places a hand on his shoulder and says, "Rise, Harlan, that is, rise, Haldane, that is all we'll need from you." And he stands up and makes his way out. The older man sort of still thunking down the way. You see tucked under his arm is a large, wide-brimmed hat that he sort of has folded and tucked underneath his armpit as he walks over to you, sort of stopping on the opposite side of where Haldane stopped. And you see that he's looking just over you. You don't have to look up or down. You kind of look across to this guy. He's similar height. And he's just looking over you as if he's examining you before your story begins. He sort of looks down at you, leans towards your front, looks at your hand holding out this tooth, this fang, and he moves around behind you to the opposite side after Haldane leaves and sort of continues that examination. He looks to the queen, sort of nods to her, not quite in a dismissive way, but you see her take that nod and she retreats back to her throne. The older man sits down on the stairs. He walks in front of you and sits down the stairs. His wooden staff, long, straight, like a good 6-foot wooden staff, maybe a little bit longer, gnarled like a hand almost at the top. He places it across his legs and he says, "Regale me with your tale, if you will."
And Solheim will go ahead and recant his memory word for word as he had told the queen, leaving no detail to spare, and once again hold out the fang of the serpent.
He leans forward and takes the fang out of your hand. You see him sort of hold it between his two hands, and he sort of rolls it around, doing a good 360 on this thing, looking at it. And he turns, without standing, and he sort of holds it up as if like mirroring the one that is mounted behind the queen's throne. He looks down at her and he says, "It is younger. It could be a mate. I would hazard a guess that you perhaps slew a matron. This is one of its brood. Hopefully, only the one. Who knows how much luck we'll have." And he sort of nods to her in a very, like, knowing sort of glance. And you haven't had a whole lot of time among royalty, even, like, appointed royalty. But that does seem like their relationship seems very comfortable for somebody who's casually sitting down on the queen's steps. He hands it back to you. And he says, "If you have no knowledge of how you came by this, then I would keep it on your person. It appears to be of potential value, and I would hesitate to remove it from its bearer. A great many things have come by unknown means to the least of suspecting people. What, may I ask, are your next plans? What will you do from here? Where will you go?"
Solheim inhales quite deeply, his chest rising and falling. "I have no plans. I have no crew. I have no captain. I have no ship. Perhaps it is time to finish this chapter of my story and return home to Dale."
If I may make a request of you, nothing that should take you out of your way. One assumes you'll travel up the river towards Tharbad, and from there take the Greenway towards Bree, and eventually the King's Road east, towards the Misty Mountains. Unless, of course, you'll pass through Rohan. Either way, if it's not asking too much or too much trouble, I would have you deliver something. A small missive. And he sort of raises his hands as if to say nothing out of the ordinary. Entirely up to you, young man.
I can do this task.
If you're heading to Dale anyway, I have a letter that needs delivering. To the village of Bree. I assume you've heard of it.
Of course, small town. Not much there.
There's a few things, but there's a ranger. And he pauses for a minute to gauge your response to this word.
The interesting thing about Solheim is that he holds, unless proven otherwise, everyone with a base level of respect. The dame, the queen, his captain, this magistrate. There is no change in his face whatsoever at the mention of a ranger. He himself was a sailor. Sailors get their own looks. He is not one to judge.
Fair enough. At no facial change, no grunt, no disdainment, he continues and said, "There's a ranger of the north who is often want to travel in the area around the villages of Bree. Now, I won't ask you to track her down. If she is not at the Prancing Pony, then perhaps you can leave this with Barnabas, the proprietor, and he can pass it on. But this is important, and my duty calls me in a different direction." And he sort of looks over his shoulder and nods to the queen, and you can kind of guess that this is new information to her as well. And he says, "And if you would be so kind as to either present this to Barnabas or present this to this ranger, I would be forever in your debt. Is that amenable?
Consider it done.
He stands, writes his staff, and pulls from somewhere in his robe this coiled piece of parchment. He hands it to you, and the first thing you notice is that it is bound in twine, which is not uncommon. But where the twine is tied to keep it in place, there is a large wax seal. And on the wax seal, how educated is Mr. Solheim here?
Oh, Solheim has maybe like a grade school level of actual education. His
Okay.
family was somewhat well-to-do, but not enough. His large stature made sure that he was better off doing something physical with his life.
Okay. Roll me lore.
Do lore. That is a failure.
That is a failure. You look at this symbol on here. It looks like fuck. It looks like almost like half a menorah. Is the easiest way I can explain it. It is like a capital I with two like half U-shaped like hooks coming off of it, right? With a dot above, below, left, and right of this thing. You look at this thing and you've seen that this may be Elvish. This symbol on here that it is marked with. He hands this to you. It is sealed in red wax, probably like the size of like $50. Is what this is, pressed in with some sort of runic inscription. He hands it to you and he says, "If you would be so kind, the ranger, a stern woman, not the greatest conversationalist. It's a woman named Haleth. Let her know that this is of the most import and that it should be handled right away."
Understood. And make it so.
He looks to you, kind of looking you over again, and he kind of like in a sweeping sort of motion, he places his right hand on your right shoulder, so like your guys are kind of facing each other. And as he's like stepping around you again, without really saying or saying goodbye or being dismissed by the queen, just sort of doing his own thing, places his hand on you, and he says, "You seem to be destined for something greater. Whether that is for the greater good or the greater ill, I am not sure, but either way, best of luck to you. And keep your friends close." There are dark days ahead, Mr. Solheim.
Perhaps it is good to go on this journey without friends. As I have been told, they are no longer here.
There is a smile that slides across his face. That is something about it. There's no sinister or malice behind it. There's actually like a mirthful warmth that like it's like a hot cup of tea. He smiles at you and there's like a little twinkle, and he says, "Something tells me you'll make some before you reach Dale." And there's like almost like a strangely parental pat from his hand. And you hear the staff tunk forward, and he steps off from you and begins to tunk his way out of the Great Hall. The queen sort of looks down at you, watching the whole scene unfold and sort of waiting for you to come back to, a semblance of reality, having that strange conversation. She looks to you and she says, "I Thank you for your service. I do apologize for your friends. You are welcome to stay here in the hall until you have fully rested and mended any wounds you have. I asked Dame not to be the bearer of this news. I felt it best to come from me. It is difficult, but you are the only entire, let alone living, person we have recovered. We have done our best to identify the crew, both based on remains and based on shipping manifest. And we have sent letters to next of kin if they have been known to us. Your companions have been given a burial at sea, and if there's anything else you would have of us, let me know before you leave.
Wilhelm is just somber, quiet for the moment, and eventually kind of comes back and looks up at the queen and bows his head slightly. Thank you again for your hospitality. If you do not mind, I would take my leave, get a little more rest.
She comes off the throne again, steps down towards you, and sort of like your hand is still out there with the fang, and she sort of takes both of your hands, or she wraps both of her hands around yours, and she leans up towards you, which is quite a lean. Like you can kind of scooch down a little bit, and she gently like side smooches your cheek, like her cheek touches your cheek, and she does the other side, and she clasps your hands and says, "Go with Ulmo's blessing." And she lets go of you and turns back. If you would like, roll me another lore.
Heck yeah, I want to roll some lore here. Let's go. Oh no.
No successes, but nothing terrible happens on an information roll. You don't know who Umo is or why he would be blessing you. But you know, not to look a gift horse in the mouth. She said a nice thing, so you're welcome to acknowledge that and just live your life.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything about her or her people that have given him a sign that this shit was bad, like they're awful people or anything
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, compared to
face value,
for sure, compared to Tharbad, you know, there's a reason you try to work out of Londair versus Tharbad. Is Tharbad is ruled over by basically a bandit king, and that's a pretty lawless city that has come back to life. Londair has only come back to life recently, and they are a small fishing village at this point. A lot of their trade goes up to Tharbad, but if you don't have to deal with that, if you can have a middleman, sure, you take a loss and pay, but at the same time, it's worth not getting knifed in an alley. So she sort of dismisses you from her throne, from the Great Hall. She has opened the same room, so she's opened her doors to you until you are fully healed and ready to leave. And so my question for you, is there anything you do in Londair before you head to Bree?
I think the only thing that Solheim is going to do is rest, eat, gather his belongings, maybe ask for traveling supplies, and be on his way as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So we will cut to a sweet 80s montage of you gathering supplies in Londaire. Everything is either gathered for you or you're able to go out into the city, the town itself, and gather it. You are... we see you board a barge headed upriver towards Tharbad. That is the quickest route. You are rowed upriver towards Tharbad. We see you get out into the city. You see large walls. The city split in two. One side towards the southeast, one side towards the northwest. You get off in the northwestern port. We see tall buildings in various states of degradation and rebuilding. A large, like, semicircular wall around each side of the halves of this. We see you passing through the guarded gates and heading up the greenway towards the village of Bree. Pack pulled tight, walking stick in hand, cloak over the head, as you make your way up the greenway. We see the fork in the road that leads either to the greenway or towards the Shire, and you take the northern road up towards the village of Bree, making your way eventually to the village of Bree and its surrounding villages, making your way through the cobblestoned, muddy streets until you see the creaking sign with a horse rearing up that says, "The Inn at the Prancing Pony." You open the door, and a warm, mirthful heat of a fire and laughs of drinks being passed around sort of greets your ears for the first time in many weeks as you make your way to Bree, a missive in hand for a ranger of the north that you have no idea where to find. And that is where we end this episode of The Shattered Crown. And if you're wondering at home, that was Gandalf. So that's the Gandalf rune. That's who you spoke to in a court. You met Gandalf. You're the first person in the party in the entirety of the campaign.
Shit.
Yeah,
My dude's fucked.
Yeah. Not only did you meet Gandalf, but you get sent on an adventure by Gandalf. You're basically dead.
I'm dead. I'm a dead man walking.
Yeah. Yeah, gray man in a cloak with a wide brim hat and a stick. That's a long white beard.
I love that.
Gandalf
So
the Grey, baby.
Boned.
Yeah, hell yeah. Okay, so we got one corruption bar. I added it to the list. Don't you worry. I try not to use them on the one shots, but I will carry that over to next week's episode where we have the whole crew back and ready to rock and roll. One of them has a ring inside their butt, so let's see what that's about. Thank you so much for being here. Noam, thank you for introducing this super awesome character. I can't wait to find out who he is and why we introduced him. Questions. And why would Gandalf send him on a mission? And what is Gandalf communicating with Haleth? If you guys like what we do here and you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is over on our Patreon. Link down below. While you're down there, click on that Discord link, join us in the Discord, be a part of the community, be a part of the conversation, and let's go around and do our introductions, and then we'll get the hell out of here. So Gnome, who are you? Where can we find you? And what are you up to?
Oh, what's up, everybody? My name is Gnome, and you can find me, I don't know, literally everywhere on the internet. On the internet.
Yeah. Them's internets.
Them's the internets. At Nomadic, I do gnome things in gnome places. Yep, that's it. That's all I got.
That's great.
Don't do anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. I'm just chilling.
You can go to Gnome's Instagram and Gnome's Twitter and look at pictures of cats if that's your thing, that's what you're into. There's pictures of cats on there.
I do show a lot of pussy on my Instagram.
Jesus Christ. Welcome back to the show. Also, go to his oh, fuck me. Go to his coffee and buy some things. He's got like stencily doodads and stickery doodads and all kinds of fucking nonsense. I hate you so much. That's where we're gonna end. That's where we're gonna end this show. No, I will prepare patrons here. No after show for the one shots. So I hope you enjoyed this. And we'll see you next week for more of these shenanigans. God damn it, chat. That's it from us. We'll see you guys next time. Bye!